the VR Report podcast with David Jean O.
Hey, what's up, Scott? How you doing?
Great. Good to see you again.
Oh man, it's been forever.
It has.
What's interesting is that we actually live by each other, which is kind of cool,
It's crazy.
right?
It's
Small
totally
world.
random. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, Scott, before I make an introduction about you and Scope AR, I think it would be great to hear from your words, kind of like introducing yourself and your origin story before I get into it.
Sure. Yeah. So I've always been an entrepreneur, I did computer science early on in school, and I actually had a tax software company that got acquired by Intuit back when I was like 23, so super early, and that kind of gave me the startup bug. So did a bunch of other kind of small company stuff, and around 2010, 2011, I started playing with computer vision. And eventually that pivoted into augmented reality, and kind of, the rest is a long, long history going on 12 years. But yeah, the passion for augmented reality has gone back a long time. And actually what I was doing back in university was neural networks. And one of my other kind of small startup companies that I built was something that was a very early precursor to ChatGPT, understanding like natural semantic stuff. So right now is a super cool time for me because there's this kind of intersection of AI and natural language and augmented reality and all the things that I've kind of been working my entire adult career around. So yeah, it's a pretty cool, exciting thing. So yeah, it's a good time. So
very cool.
Yeah.
And I never asked you this because we met when I was at the original Meta.
Yeah, first Meta, yeah.
The first Meta. And, we did a lot of, I think we did a couple of pitches together. I don't remember all the history, but I always found your story fascinating. But I never got to ask you, how did you even start Scope AR? And please explain to the audience what Scope AR is all about.
Yeah, for sure. So, so we use augmented reality to deliver knowledge. If you really think about the really geeky way that our brains work, the fastest way to get information into your brain is through your eyes and experience in the 3D world. Your visual cortex is the most powerful part of your brain. It's constantly processing a ton of stimuli from, your surroundings. And so in contrast to how, we normally learn, which is like reading words on a page, or maybe diagrams, or maybe videos. That's all in 2 dimensions. But our brains really can consume much more information in 3D. So augmented reality and some extent virtual reality is a really awesome way to consume that information. So be able to learn really quickly and just the retention you get out of that experiential mechanism of knowledge transfer is just amazing. So, early on, I'll tell you about how we started in a second, but what we really do is we have a really scalable platform. It makes it easy to bring in 3D models into your web browser and then create really complex experiences for a bunch of different use cases. So it could be training, where we're teaching you how to do something. It could be maintenance, where we're actually showing you how to fix something. It could be manufacturing, where we're showing you how to assemble something. And it's all kind of the same thing. It boils down to micro training or micro learning, or however you want to describe it. But just a really small consumable bits of information that you're receiving in real time to figure out how to do your job better. So in the case of traditional training, the point of traditional training is repetition. You're going to do it 1,000 times so that when the time comes for your brain to recall that information, it's good, it's in there, it's memorized. But that's pretty inefficient to repeat something 1,000 times to only use it a couple times, right? So what we find is that it's good for training, and the number of times you need to receive this information is a lot less. Your retention metrics are a lot better. But then sometimes you don't even have to train, or in the sense of traditional training. We can give you that information on the job. So we can literally overlay 3D models on top of a piece of equipment to show you how to maintain something, fix something, like open this panel, remove the battery. Here's the cables you need to remove. Really simple instructions. Or manufacturing could be like, put this part here, run this wire here. So very visual. You don't have to, train. So it's all about, getting contextually relevant information at the right time to be able to do your job more efficiently. And as we have all these macroeconomic impacts around the skills gaps, the lack of trained labor, the need to reskill people rapidly, the constant pressures for companies to be more efficient. This is an answer to all those technologies, or all those challenges, right? So it's a really interesting time. Now, how all this came about, it was like, over 10 years ago now at this point. So we had developed a proof of concept on an iPad, actually, on the iPad 2, the first iPad with a camera, so way early, around some stuff with like advertising and marketing, augmented reality. And a customer came to us and said, hey, this is cool. Can we use it for training? And we thought, oh, that's a cool idea. So we did a quick proof of concept with them. It was, how to replace a circuit breaker on the side of a mining truck. And the company was like, hey, this is cool. We want to show this at a massive trade show in Las Vegas next year. And we want a pair of glasses. So here's a big pile of money. Go buy every pair of augmented reality glasses on the planet. And if nothing's good enough, then build some. And we're like, okay. So we literally tried to go buy every pair of augmented reality glasses on the planet. And this was 2012. So there weren't a lot.
That's right.
And so we ended up building some. So what we ended up doing was hacking the Epson Novario ones. We hot glued a webcam on top of them. We hacked the firmware to make a pair of augmented reality glasses. And we showed this at this trade show in Vegas. Massive trade show, only happens every 4 years. So the companies that are putting this on, they want to make a big splash. And that was really the aha moment. We were supposed to show it a few times a day, like it was just a novelty for this company. And we ended up showing it over 100 times. We were literally tearing apart this $250,000 piece of equipment called a rock drill. The thing is really heavy. It's like 70 pounds to pull off and back again. We did this 100 times over 3 days. And every time we did it, we had crowds of 100 people, crowded around, and people coming up to us like, oh my God, this is the future. This is amazing. This one guy's story in particular really stuck out for us. He said, I've been maintaining this exact equipment for my entire career. I'm at the end of my career, 35 years. I just learned how to do it properly. I have trained hundreds of other people in the field to do it the wrong way. I've probably cost the company tens of millions of dollars at least. I've shortened the lifespan of this equipment by half because I've always done it the wrong way. So this is amazing. Like, how do I get this technology? So that was really the big aha moment. And out of that trade show, we managed to get some proof of concepts from NASA and Toyota and Boeing, to really understand how to use this technology. So that was the genesis of the entire idea. And ever since then, we've kind of never, what we came up with after that was just the idea that this could be used to train people on how to do things. Now, we had the idea that maybe it could be, used to train people on how to fix cars, like change spark plugs or something like that. But what has resulted has been far, far bigger and more cool than we've ever thought. So anyway, that's the long story about what we do and where we came from. I think it's always pretty cool to understand, where a big idea comes from, right?
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And you also come from Canada, Alberta, which is, far from Silicon Valley. Like, where was the move there? Because you got one of your companies acquired by Intuit, and it was a tax platform or an application.
That's right.
And then you were doing, I guess, service work and consulting before you got that gig to show off that iPad experience, or
yeah,
how did that happen?
Yeah, so I had another company in like 2006 to 2009, and it died in the last financial crisis. That was one of those ones that was like a very early precursor to ChatGPT. So we were trying to do like natural language processing, so honestly, after that experience, I was burned out, and so I went traveling to Southeast Asia for 7 months, try to clear my head, get myself back. I came back and started playing with some technology and I did some consulting to make ends meet, all the while kind of starting some businesses and started building some computer vision augmented reality stuff, and the rest is history. And I guess the reason why I moved to Silicon Valley is having the startup bug. There's no better place to be than Silicon Valley. And having gone to New Zealand and Australia and Singapore and all these amazing cities around the world, we went back to where I come from, Edmonton, Alberta. I'm like, time to move on to something. We really we actually narrowed it down to 3 cities where we wanted to move. One was San Francisco, Sydney, or Singapore. Ended up going to LA, which was weird. And so I stayed in LA for a couple of years, and then moved up to San Francisco, and the rest is history. But I mean, if you want to start a company, Silicon Valley is the best place to be.
Right. Especially for tech, right?
Yeah.
And so you've seen quite a bit happen, since you started your company, especially in the AR space.
Yeah.
Now we have the Apple Vision Pro. Big announcement. A lot of interest back into XR. especially from the XR community. What's your initial thoughts on the device?
Yeah, I mean, having not seen it yet, which I hope that change soon, as soon as possible. On the surface, it looks like it's the device of my dreams. Like, like I said, I built something 12 years ago as just as a proof of concept. And I mean, we really went full time on this company in 2015. And we've literally seen every single XR device that's been produced since 2012. I kind of prided myself on being at the forefront of all these devices. So I've literally seen all of it. And so, I know what works and what doesn't. And, it's been a very long road, as we can all attest, in terms of, the development. Turns out that building a pair of AR glasses is far harder than anybody ever thought. And so, what Apple seems to have produced, I think, checks the boxes on a lot of problems that have been solved. The fundamental reason why AR glasses are so difficult to produce well is you've got a whole lot of competing factors that if you fix one thing, it breaks something else, and that equation just has never been able to be fixed. Everybody wants a big field of view, like infinite field of view. I want my entire display to be augmented. Well, for that, you need, really big projectors, and that means a lot of power, which means a big battery, which means it's heavy and not comfortable. Okay, so that's not going to work. Well, I also want a long battery life. Again, bigger battery, but that's going to make my headset bigger and less comfortable, which means I don't want to wear it as long. And then you want like really good spatial tracking. Well, that requires really powerful lasers to map what you're looking at. Again, bigger battery. All these things mostly boil down to the size of battery and the power envelope that you're able to deliver this experience in. And even the Vision Pro, I'm a little disappointed it's not pass-through AR. I mean, everybody has this vision that it's a pair of sunglasses that just magically overlays your vision, right? And so by having, it's essentially a VR display with pass-through cameras. But if they're able to achieve what it seems like they have achieved in terms of the experience being almost perfect in terms of not really knowing that you're looking at an opaque display. Then I think they've cracked the code as well as anybody can at this point. I mean that's a big thing, is the form factor, is making it comfortable and wearable, for normal use. And then I think the biggest thing that's often overlooked is the user experience. So if, let's just say that you do have this pair of glasses, then how do you interact with it? And so there's a few different ways you can interact in augmented reality. There's, touching things in 3D space. There's a problem with this though. You get gorilla arm pretty quickly. Typing on a virtual keyboard is really uncomfortable. It's not accurate. This is not comfortable. Just even typing in an email and password is a really annoying interface. So then there's eye tracking, but also fairly slow. Not great. There's voice, but try controlling your phone with Siri. It's painful. And so what you really need is a combination of all these things packaged into a really well thought out user interface. And again, it seems like Apple has actually done this. The gesture recognition that they've seems to have solved is very highly detailed, as in you can, it sounds like you can have your hands kind of in your lap and have very small finger gestures that allow you to control the interface nicely. It sounds like voice recognition is vastly improved and works in concert with your hands and your eye tracking. So this all works really, really well. So it seems like they've actually taken all these different really hard to build technologies and do what Apple does really well, which is packaged into a very nice user interface that's meant for humans. So that's what's super exciting to me. It feels like they've kind of cracked the code as well as anybody possibly has. And yeah, I mean, I've literally been waiting 12 years to see this, and so pretty excited.
Yeah, it's super cool. Yeah. I think people cannot help but to make the comparison to HoloLens, especially when you're considering AR. And the biggest difference between what Apple is doing versus what Microsoft had done is that Microsoft had chosen to keep all the compute on the headset, which caused a lot of issues, like you mentioned, being comfortable, form factor. And Apple chose the direction of what Magic Leap was doing to put that compute off of the headset to make it a little bit lighter, even though it's made out of aluminum. And I don't know exactly how much it weighs, but the reports are saying it's pretty heavy. But they solved a couple of things. One, like you mentioned, those different array of cameras to understand hand tracking. It gets the little minute movements. And I remember demoing the first Meta, and every time you put the headset in and people want to use their hands, people all automatically assume that they can grab things without having to worry about occlusion, or sometimes, maybe grabbing it outside of you so the cameras can't even track what your hands are doing. That took people out of the immersion, right? Because people automatically assume they're doing something wrong. And I just wanted to get your thoughts, like in terms of hand tracking, because with WorkLink, for example, that's your AR platform. Do you see the need now of hand input as being a main driver for input front and center now with AR applications, especially for the enterprise, considering that these are CEOs that may not know how to use controllers?
Yeah, I mean, so we definitely don't use controllers. Our hand interactions are pretty limited in terms of working with actually generally two-dimensional content. Our platform's mostly a linear platform, so we're doing step-by-step instructions. There's definitely interactions where you can have you can tap on a part and have actions where it'll do something. So maybe it explodes or takes you to another step or something like that. There's lots of different things you can do with those interactions. We try to make it as easy to use for non-developers to create this. Like at the end of the day, the goal of the platform is for subject matter experts to be able to communicate what you need to do in terms of training or maintenance or manufacturing. So we try to have a platform that's as flexible as possible. As far as parts manipulation, maybe traditionally we've stayed away from VR, and that's I think something that's really important in VR is that parts thing. But again, the hand tracking hasn't been good enough for that to be any good. So yeah, when we get our heads on the Apple device, we'll definitely have to see if that's something that's now actually technologically viable from a user experience perspective to actually have those very small interactions to pull something apart, and if that's something that users want to do. It's kind of an unknown at this point. Our interactions are mostly like tap this button here and stuff like that. So I've been saying this for years, like with the HoloLens, the three-dimensional user experience is a total research project. There is so much greenfield there. If we go back to the iPhone, I think 2 dimensions is literally an exponentially easier problem, but it still took 1 or 2 years for developers to understand how you actually use gestures on the iPhone to great effect. The first apps for the iPhone were stupid apps, like fart apps, right? Like really, really basic stuff. And it took a few years before you had stuff like Candy Crush and things that really took advantage of like the two-dimensional gesture functionality you got on a phone. And so you've got that problem, but with exponentially more problems and opportunity in a 3D space. And so it's been years since the HoloLens kind of made this available. I still don't think we have it right. Maybe Apple's taken much longer strides to make that right. Early on in the HoloLens days, I kind of thought about like, how do you build a 3D UI? Like, what paradigm can we use that mimics kind of a menu? So we've got in our desktops, we've got the concept of a menu, right? Where you go file, open something rather, right? What does that look like in a 3D environment? We don't necessarily have that in our iPhones, but we've got kind of tap 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 and this linear progression of screens. So how do you apply that in a 3D environment? Is it cubes? Like, is a menu just a set of cubes that I can go grab and then open my file system? I think that was like in Jurassic Park, like they did some interface like that. And then you've got Hollywood types like Minority Report and stuff that has AR interfaces that look pretty cool. Is that really practical? I don't think so. Probably again the hand gorilla thing. Like on Star Trek these days, you have all these people controlling stuff with their hands. I don't think that's practical. Nobody's going to do this for more than a couple minutes, right? So yeah, like it's a hard problem. It's greenfields. I don't think anybody solved it. I'm super excited to see what Apple is recommending, but super interesting.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting, and I'm glad you mentioned how long it takes for things like even gestures of how touch matures over time. It reminds me how I used to think, wow, what a breakthrough with Temple Run, because games are usually the forefront of innovation. Like, this swiping technique feels so great. And then, you see other like dating apps utilizing this gesture, and it
Right.
becomes kind of norm after that.
Yep.
But in terms of your experience now working, what we talked about this before the interview, like you have a multitude of different AR headsets. Besides Apple Vision Pro, I mean, do you like Quest Pro? Do you like, the stuff that Lenovo's putting out? I'm sure you checked out the Pro from Vive. What do you think about the hardware landscape today? And can you explain to our audience what you like and what you don't like, or what you're looking forward to for new features for AR headsets?
Yeah, so I stay away from VR headsets. Whenever I get them, I'm one of those people that get sick in them. It's weird. It's a couple months ago. There's a trade show with all the new hardware out there, and I'm like, all right, maybe it's better this time. And again, within like 30 seconds or a minute in these things, I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, VR is still not for me. Which is really funny because I actually, I had like the DK1. I saw it like pre-launch. I was with the Oculus guys at CES before that, and I saw their stuff. So I've definitely been there. Like, that's how old I am, and how long I've been in this industry. But yeah, VR has just never been my thing. So I've definitely focused on the AR headsets. So yeah, I mean, from a hardware perspective, HoloLens is like a 5-year-old device at this point. It's getting pretty long in the tooth. It's still, I think, probably the best and most practical device out there for most use cases that we see. On the factory floor, you have a bunch of different competing issues. As always, we've got wearability. On many factory floors, safety is a huge problem, and so you can't have opaque interfaces. And you can't have cables because it may get caught in some kind of machinery. So anything that has a cable or is tethered is kind of off the table. So that pretty much limits us to HoloLens. Now, in a training environment that we see, there's a lot more options. HoloLens is good. Magic Leap, I'm actually really impressed with Magic Leap. It's a great device. I'm really excited by what Qualcomm's doing. I think that approach, I've been talking a lot about how what I think Qualcomm Spaces is kind of the Android equivalent to iOS. So if we think of what Google did with Android, you had iOS that was like the flagship. It kind of taught the market what a smartphone should be. And then Android, it did all the things that make it really hard for a smartphone to exist. It had an app store and safety and an operating system and email clients and all the things. And then gave it for free essentially to hardware manufacturers to do what they do best, which is produce hardware. That's the way I think about Qualcomm Spaces. They're partnering with companies like Digilens and Lenovo and purportedly Google and Samsung to kind of be that Android operating system of the AR glasses side of things. Because there's a lot of things that have to go right for AR glasses. There's a reason why it has taken so long for us to get here. It's power and it's compute, and Qualcomm builds the best chips on the planet, the most efficient. So what they've done is they've packaged this into a cohesive set of technologies that all work really, really well together. From the AI algorithms to the cameras and the timing chips and the CPUs and GPUs and all of that coming together, and then giving it to manufacturers so they just go build the glasses. That's what's really required to build the Android equivalent of what Apple's doing. So I'm really not surprised to see Google and Samsung rumored to be partnering with Qualcomm on that one. What else is out there? I guess I'm looking forward to seeing what Spaces brings to the table, because now that's going to essentially democratize the ability to build this. I mean, Magic Leap has raised like $5 billion or something. I mean, the first Meta raised I don't know, what was it, $50 million, and that was not even close to enough to go produce this, right? Same with ODG. I mean, if ODG was still around, they'd still be one of the best headsets out there. But again, didn't raise nearly enough, it's a really tough ecosystem. So, I'm really excited what was coming up. The Lenovo glasses are great for certain use cases. It looks like Digilens is pretty cool too. I'm looking forward to what all the other, stuff is coming out in the next few years, especially with the pressure from Apple kind of making everybody be like, okay, market's real now. Let's go invest in this. So.
Yeah, I'm surprised from this last AWA. I saw a lot of different AR headsets coming to market. Spacetop, that is also an Android equivalent of what Apple Vision is trying to do on the Android platform, something lightweight, doing the compute actually on their Spacetop, their version of a laptop.
Yeah.
I think that there's going to be other companies and software developers making their own headsets, just like how you did and you hacked in Epson. If people think of AR glasses, they don't think of Epson, they think of printers, but
Totally.
I think that's going to be a new wave. There was also a recent report from, I believe it was called Allied Market Research, where they said the AR industry and just in aviation is going to be like $24 billion in 2031. And I know you've worked with Lockheed Martin. I would like to get your thoughts of where are they getting that figure? Is it really around visualization and digital twins and designing and manufacturing, or do you think for aviation it's around training? Where do you think the biggest use cases now for aviation and AR are going to be?
I think just like every industry, there's a gazillion use cases. It is not really hard to imagine where it can be applied, but I can definitely tell you where I see it being applied. So yeah, I mean, we work with a whole lot. Aerospace and defense is really one of our specialties. So yeah, we work with Lockheed, Northrop, Rolls-Royce, a bunch of others. And building some of the coolest stuff that the U.S. military produces. Yeah, I mean, stuff from being underneath an airplane and actually helping you install stuff, things like training technicians, before they go to the factory floor, getting them familiar with a really complex task. If you're going to go and do like a really complex installation where if you screw it up, you break, you cost a lot of money. It's much better to do that in a virtual environment than on the real thing. And, there's not a lot of F-35s out there. And so, you don't really want to go, train on something. So it's a lot easier to do it on a virtual F-35. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities like just in the manufacturing side of things. Then there's things like pilot training. That's a huge opportunity as well. There's maintenance. So we work with a number of companies on the aftermarket, like even the commercial aviation side of things. I mean, I don't know how often I've been on a plane stuck on a tarmac waiting for that guy to come down and fix whatever light is on, the warning light, right? And you can be on the tarmac for hours. Yeah. And every time I'm sitting there, I'm like, God, I wish they were a customer. Oh, if they were just a customer, we could solve this problem for them. So yeah, I mean, now we are. So, the sky's the limit in terms of this. Like when I say maintenance, it's like, either being able to remotely collaborate, so you can, take even your iPhone out and, call up back to a call center, or even a dude sitting on a couch being like, hey, this the switch on landing gear is blinking. What do I do with this? And then the guy can go do it. So that type of kind of maintenance, to actually overlaying really complex 3D models on top of that landing gear, to be like, okay, we have to go take this apart and put it back together again. The gains you get in terms of efficiency there are pretty big. So yeah, I mean, soup to nuts, like the manufacturing through operations, through training of pilots and flight attendants and maintenance crews to actual maintenance. There are use cases for augmented reality across the board. We like to actually talk about the augmented reality market in terms of the entire product lifecycle. We like to say that we can help you build stuff, we can help you sell stuff, and we can help you fix stuff. So all the way through that entire product lifecycle, and that's not just aviation; that's medical devices, semiconductors, renewable energy, automotive. So there are places to play all along the product lifecycle of anything that's beyond a simple product.
I think instructionals is definitely valuable, especially when you're talking about like tens of $1 million jets that need to get repaired. I think also high stress or high impact type training where you don't want to have like natural disaster zones simulated. I think that's also very important in AR. What do you think are other breakthrough AR experiences that's really transformed a specific industry?
Well, I like I said, I mean, across the product, we really focus, and my brain focuses on like how do we apply to to many different products. And yeah, like the sky's the limit. From manufacturing to actually sales is interesting. Being able to sell a complex product has been a really game changer for a lot of customers. The ability to take a really complex product, probably not an F-35, but like maybe an X-ray machine, and then just drop it on a boardroom table, and walk around it and blow it up and show why your X-ray machine is so much better than your competitors. Either to train the sales rep or to actually do the sales presentation is actually really powerful. So then there's product marketing type use cases, installation use cases. Being able to, some of our use cases are around like installing devices at the point of sale. So probably not an X-ray machine, but like a piece of diagnostic equipment or something. The sales rep that's on site can be the person that's actually recognizing revenue by going and doing the installation and checking the box that it's properly installed, right? So there are so many different game-changing opportunities and use cases that are. So it's just really cool. So
I think sales is definitely a market that people really haven't taken advantage of, especially when, like, for example, if you wanted to sell a yacht or a high-end boat, you're not going to bring a physical boat or an X-ray machine there. Yeah. And I don't think that it's taken off because the headsets they're not very accessible.
Totally.
B, you can do that with the phone, but you're missing out on the wow factor, how big this plane is or how big this X-ray machine is. Yeah. And I do like what you had brought up regarding Qualcomm and how they're coming into the market and how they're approaching it. What do you think about some of these other companies that are focused on bringing less expensive AR headsets to market? Have you tried them? I mean, I've tried a couple. I don't want to call them out because I think that's bad form, but there's some that are very like form factor wise. It's really cool. It's lightweight. They're also pushing the compute into a puck. What do you think of those? Are they just not ready for prime time yet? Or maybe we just haven't invested enough into those experiences yet?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just takes a lot of money to make a really good quality device. Like I said, I mean, Magic Leap has raised billions. I think it's up to $5 billion at this point. And yeah, it's a device that can compete with Microsoft, and I'm sure Microsoft invested like $10 billion in the HoloLens ecosystem, right? So I mean, that's big money. That's really tough for any tiny company to compete with. And like I said, the technology is so complex. There are so many different factors, from your waveguides or whatever your display technology is, to the processors, to the form factor and manufacturing, to the software and user interface and all that. It is really expensive, and there are only a handful of companies on the planet that actually can take that on, and that's basically Apple, Google. I mean, even Qualcomm, even Google is collaborating with Samsung and Qualcomm. So even Google's not big enough to take this on themselves. I mean, they tried with Google Glass, and they got burned, obviously. And they've had a couple of false starts with Gear VR and those things. But yeah, I mean, it's hard. So kudos to any small company that's trying to tackle it. I think there's certainly room in for smaller companies to tackle a segment of it, like go after the waveguides if that's your specialty, or go after some piece of it, because the supply chain is going to be really important. Even if Google or even if Apple does succeed with Vision Pro, the next version is going to eventually they're going to want to do a sunglasses form factor, because that is the holy grail. And so if there's a startup out there that solves one of Apple's serious problems, either you'll be a part of the supply chain or you'll get acquired. So there. But yeah, I think so yeah, it's really hard. You came from Meta, a small company. We already talked about how much it costed to build this. ODG, again, we mentioned them. So I hope the small companies are successful. Competition is good. It's healthy. And it's good for me. I mean, I definitely want to be able to offer my customers a plethora of options to cater to each use case. That's another thing that I really like about what Qualcomm's doing is, they're providing a standardized set of parameters for hardware manufacturers, but the way every manufacturer is going to differentiate is based on use case. So, you want, a lightweight training pair of glasses. great. And cheaper. So you can get it to all of your 10,000 sales reps, right? So we'll sell it for a decent price point and call it $1,000 or something. Then there's your field service use cases where it's got to be safety certified to whatever rating, safety glass and ruggedized so it can handle windstorms and rain and stuff like that. So that's going to be another set of glasses to differentiate and get it out there. So right now, all we have is just a couple of glasses that kind of try to square peg and round hole every use case. If you want to do training or heavy manufacturing, you got to use the HoloLens. So it's actually not a great fit for either use case. It's too heavy for training, and it's not quite good enough for really good manufacturing use cases. So that's what I'm really excited about is the democratization of building these things, and which will lead to the proliferation of a wide variety of devices catering to many use cases.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a renaissance in terms of people making their own headsets. To your point, the tech giants, they have to rely on different supply chains to even get the parts brought in to make the headsets.
Yeah.
And that's why you see, collaborations like between Google and Samsung, who is really focused on the hardware. Google, of course, is very much focused on the software, pretty much similar to their relationship now with mobile phones. Yeah. But everyone always talks about this, and we've probably had a couple of conversations about this as well. Enterprise will be the first use cases around AR because of the cost prohibitiveness of it, and also really solving problems that are business related, then gets it to scale, because once businesses adopt it, they can find consumer applications for it. What other strategies have you found to be really effective in terms of simplifying adoption and deployment of AR solutions? What are Scott's thoughts on that?
Yeah. So you got, like it or not, you got to start with pilot projects. This is a brand new technology, and you may find a champion who's a believer in the technology, but chances are, the CFO of your company isn't. They want to see proof of return on investment for every dollar that they spend. And this is not cheap. The headsets are expensive, and content creation, software, and headcounts, and all that is expensive to have as experiments. And so until it's not proven, then the dollar amounts that a CFO is going to greenlight to go spend quickly are pretty low. But yeah, so we found that land and expand motion is very successful. You go in. We have obviously a very long history of experience with hundreds of customers and thousands of use cases being successful, and so our teams really know what works and what doesn't, and we can really quickly go assess if something's worth doing and it will provide an ROI or if it won't. And I don't know what our success rate is, but I'd be willing to guess it's like 95%.
Wow.
If a customer works with us to identify these use cases, then we can provide a really good ROI. And a lot of those ROI calculations are stellar. We in a training scenario, we see outcomes of routinely 50% better retention or customer satisfaction or whatever on the factory floor for manufacturing. We routinely see between 25-40% efficiency, sometimes much higher, even up to 80%. So the return on investment that people get out of this is generally pretty good. But again, a CFO doesn't know. It's brand new technology. They don't know. They don't trust it. They want to make sure it works with their stuff and their environment. So you got to go prove it. And then after that, then you scale and go grow once you've kind of proven that the base technology works. So that's definitely our strategy to go land this. So
I really like that approach. I also like how you've really focused on tackling an AR solution holistically. Like you said, you'll look at from start to finish, soup to nuts. Like, hey, this is a business. What are your biggest problems? And then how do you inject AR to be more productive, have bigger ROI and all that good stuff? Yeah. How do you even start? Like for new companies that may have also been doing a lot of work for enterprise and they're thinking, okay, well, now it's the time to get in. What's the high level view of how do you tackle that problem? How do you talk to that client to be able to get something successfully deployed and get them on board?
So as somebody who's providing an AR solution to an enterprise,
yes.
It's a consultative process. You have to go in, understand their problems, And then, first of all, see if AR is a fit. There's places where AR is a very good fit, and there's places where AR is not a fit. For example, we did a marketing campaign earlier this year that really focused around training. Unfortunately, we weren't targeted enough in the approach of what training meant. And so we got a lot of stuff like cashier training and, frontline, low skilled worker training. Just stuff that wasn't in our wheelhouse. And we're like, okay, you should probably go somewhere else to, find your cashier training solutions. This is not going to be a fit for you. So, I definitely be choosy and specific around, what you're going to do. And the thing is, like AR, like I said, the greenfield for use cases of AR is literally everything. It's it kind of got the same surface area as AI. AI can be applied everywhere. AR can be applied on equally large plane, but in the physical space. And so, there's not going to be a one size fits all solution, and you've got to go target your solution to that particular problem. It's very consultative. Obviously, customer first, making customer satisfaction is really important to making sure that customers really trust you and like you.
You've worked with a lot of industries between aerospace and automotive, and there's a lot of regulation in that space. How do you navigate the regulatory landscape in developing and deploying these AR solutions?
It certainly hasn't been easy. We got end-to-end encryption and on-prem and privacy and HIPAA compliance and all these different things. That's just maturity. It takes a long time, a lot of effort, a lot of infrastructure. It's good. If I had known how complex it was, would I have ever gone down this road? Probably not. But it's like a frog being boiled slowly. You kind of, land a big customer and they promise you the world, and you don't really realize how hard it is to actually satisfy all the requirements required. So the good news is, we've been at this for a very long time, and we built all that stuff now. And even then, we still keep coming across like, oh, so we've got all these different deployment options. You're different. Okay, so we have to build a brand new deployment option with all these different requirements. Seriously, you're not like the rest of these other companies that are similar to you. It's been surprising the amount of infrastructure required to cater to these companies.
Totally, and I think there's that whole issue of just data. Like, hey, a lot of the stuff is proprietary. Seeing some of the stuff in headset, what are the implications based on that? And I think that's really just, it comes down to being a ninja to navigate these regulatory waters, and each industry is different. Yeah. I was surprised how HoloLens had gotten that contract with the U.S. Army, right? It wasn't the Navy; it was the U.S. Army.
Yeah, it was the Army. Yeah,
this multi-billion-dollar contract, and then it stopped, and I was like, oh man, that's kind of a bummer. But then after finding out more information of why that happened, it just didn't fill the use case. It wasn't that great one use case that the military had needed. And also, the form factor itself just wasn't rugged enough. They would have to do all of these different modifications, which would basically turn into a different headset.
Yeah.
In terms of finding product market fit, one thing that you state on your website is how there's going to be, an aging workforce that's going to be retiring, taking years of expert knowledge away from them when they retire. In terms of manufacturing, that's really important. Like you had brought up that example at the beginning of this conversation. This one person had said, hey, wow, I've been doing it wrong the whole time. Are these conversations front and center today, considering that, we are having some challenges with workforce, with employment, with this whole aging population that is getting out of the workforce? Are those conversations that are top of mind, or is this just something that, people are just aware of? I just want to know the severity of this issue.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. A couple of weeks ago, I think it was Taiwan Semiconductor that hit pause on building one of their giant facilities for a couple of years because there just weren't enough workers, in North America to cater to it. That's a huge problem. I think the current security landscape is such that for a long time, America outsourced semiconductor manufacturing to China and Taiwan. And now all of a sudden is realizing, oh man, we probably need that here because we're not all friends anymore. And so, there's a huge initiative. I mean, Biden just spent a ton of money trying to bring back the CHIPS Act, right? There's aren't enough workers to be actually able to work in those factories. We saw that firsthand. We were at another semiconductor company in Arizona, working with them and seeing their operations. What we discovered is, first of all, the operations are very poorly documented, and there's only a handful of people that really know it. In fact, we were in a discussion with kind of this group, and when everybody else left the room, there was this one guy's like, "Yeah, man, there's all these things that only I know. I've been here 30 years. I know everything about the factory, and if I ever leave, this place is going to fall apart, and they should probably pay me for it because I'm actually entertaining in their job." Right. So yeah, this is very acute. I mean, there's the factory being delayed example. I've also been on the phone with several Fortune 500 CEOs, and something about the last couple of years has caused major attrition in the industry. One of these CEOs I was talking to, he's like, "I lost double digits in my workforce last year. That's just crazy in this industry to lose double digits." And he's like, "I know all my competitors. Like, it's a pretty small space. I talked to all the CEOs. They also lost 20% of their workforce last year, and we don't know where these people went. We have a certain level of we poach from each other, and it kind of it's the same workforce that just goes around and round and round. But when all of us are losing 20% of our workforce, and they're not going to each other. Where are they going? They're just retiring. They're who knows where they're going. So this is a huge problem. And across industries, we hear it over and over and over again in the media. But in talking to the Fortune 500 CEOs, this is really an acute problem. So collectively, our society has to figure out how to continue to improve productivity, because that's what the economy is based on, right? Everything's got to go up and to the right. If stuff starts going down, then that's a serious problem. But we have less and less people to actually accomplish that productivity. This is a society-wide problem where we need to be able to get people to continue to be more effective with actually less people in the workforce. And so this is a great solution to that problem.
What's your hypothesis? What happened to these 20% of the people?
I think the pandemic just made us all realize that life is short, and working crazy hours and staying away from our family in the hopes of at some point going back and seeing them, it didn't really pay off, right? We had lots of people die, lots of people are affected by this stuff, and I think collectively the willingness of people to be in low paying jobs has gone away. Just dramatic change in workforce, like work from home has shifted dramatically how people work. I think a lot of people just retired and just not willing to put up with it anymore. This is good enough. I'm sure that accounts for some segment of those people who are retired. Aside from that, I don't know. It's certainly a real acute problem.
Yeah, I think people leaving the job force with all those examples that you had mentioned are super valid. I think what businesses are also trying to understand, especially if you're the CFO, robotics come into play. And to spend money on robotics is substantially more expensive than a headset and some software.
Yep.
And then obviously some consultation and support that comes away with your end. Do you see a lot of those conversations of people saying, "Hey, am I choosing to automate through robotics, or am I choosing to have AR?" Are those conversations being had?
Actually, I was with the C-suite of one of our biggest aerospace customers, and they're like, we're not really sure we're going to invest in AR because, in 5 years, robotics may just take over. And so my response was, I think that's incredibly short-sighted. For you guys, if you have to go and climb up on top of an airplane wing and go and fix a rivet, for example, that's a really hard job to train a robot to do effectively. In fact, I think that's more or less impossible with today's technology. Now, obviously, AI is advancing rapidly, but even then, you see the AI dog or the robotic dog, right? It can kind of run around and stuff like that. But that took a lot of training. So we're not saying it's never going to happen, but very soon, or we're a long ways away from artificial intelligence, general artificial intelligence robots being able to do that. But a human is really, really good at climbing up on an airplane wing and going and fixing a rivet. So you can get the best of both worlds. Having the infinite knowledge of the internet contextually delivered to a human at the point of work to give them exactly the piece of information they need to do, and then just do what humans are good at to go climb up in the airplane wing and fix that rivet. That's the perfect solution. And then, when robots do get, intelligent enough to start being, a general, AR is also going to play a role there, because you'll have that information on how to work with that robot. You'll want to be situationally aware that the robot's there and doing something so they don't hurt you. Again, it will actually be able to know that you're there, and you can work together. It's all about using the right technologies to enable collaboration amongst all these crazy new technologies. I mean, the same thing you can be said about AI as well. I mean, AI, I think, is going to replace a lot of white collar jobs. But in terms of blue collar jobs, the potential for it to sift through way too much information to deliver you that contextually relevant piece of information when you need it is tremendous. And I think that can deliver major productivity gains, similar to robotics in kind of the real world space. So, certainly we're going through a period of rapid change with rapid technological innovation. Whenever we do this, jobs will be lost. There will be, kind of economic casualties. But then historically, we've always rebounded. People are maybe saying that it's going to be different this time. I'm not so sure. I think we always just find a way to adapt and do more and more and more. At the end of, at our core, we're ambitious humans, and we want to leverage technology to do more, and we'll always find more things to do. So
That's very well said. Scope AR, I've been on the sidelines just watching you grow, and it's amazing how many AR first Scope AR has done and pioneered. Can you give us kind of a glimpse of your secret sauce of how you envision these pioneering AR technologies and how you've been doing it?
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely right. I mean, so I started the company, like I said, building a computer vision technology. Myself getting familiar with those algorithms, ended up taking off the shelf solution to actually do the in production side, because big company invested gazillions of dollars making it really good. But then, again, building a pair of AR glasses, before everybody else did. And then, I think now, building, what I would humbly consider the best platform, on the planet, in terms of being able to create scalable content solutions. Really, the secret sauce is about listening to customers, and understanding what they want and solving problems. At the end of the day, customers will pay you to solve their problems. I pay lots of other companies to solve my problems. I pay lots of vendors to, fill in gaps where I don't have them. It's all about collaboration and great partnerships and just listening. So we definitely try to treat all of our customers like partners. And we have lots of really great customers that have influenced our roadmap. And in turn, we've been able to help them improve their productivity and deliver really great results. And for me, I'm just passionate about being on the bleeding edge of cool technology. It's kind of a backwards way to build a company. To be honest, it's a hammer looking for a nail. But in this case, it's a big hammer, and there's lots of nails that need to be. It took a while for the whole thing to fit together. But I think we're on the precipice of explosion in terms of number of use cases. Like I said, I've been waiting 12 years for the Apple glasses to finally fit that last piece of to have a really good headset to go to market with, and pretty excited about where we're at.
You mentioned a good point regarding Apple and looking ahead now. What do you believe is the next big milestones for AR technology and its integration to be part of our daily lives? So first of all, we got to see the Apple headset first and see if this is real, because very few people have seen it so far. Assuming everything we've read is true, I think this will cater to a certain segment of the market. It'll be interesting. It's a very expensive device, and it's going to be out of reach of most consumers. And so, that naturally means that enterprises are going to be the place where, it has to penetrate first. And even then, I don't think it's going to be a perfect device for a lot of use cases. Like I said, that opaque, pass-through display, that may or may not be a killer for a lot of use cases on, maintenance, factory floor. You certainly aren't going to go out to the middle of the desert to go fix a solar panel or a
telephone pole or something like that with a giant $3,000 headset, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, the next milestone, I think, I think there's a bunch. What this is going to do is it's going to spur competition. So everybody's going to look at Apple. This is the constant Apple Samsung playbook, right? Apple brings something out, Samsung copies it on the Android side of things, or does something similar, and they compete against each other to push the state of things forward. I think what I love about Qualcomm's doing is they're enabling that base technology to be there to support Samsung in that endeavor, plus all the other kind of startups that are going to try to compete in that space. And ultimately, we're going to see, I think, the holy grail, which is the sunglasses form factor, from somebody, where eventually somebody will figure out how to get the fastest processors. Maybe it's streaming over 5G. Or maybe it's wireless to your phone, where the phone does the heavy lifting. Plus a great set of displays, all built up with like a good battery to be able to get there. Who knows how long that takes? I mean, we in the tech industry are notoriously bad at predicting timelines on this stuff. I mean, for me, if I had known that it was going to be 2023 before I had a decent headset when I started this thing in 2015, I may have made other choices. But we all thought that AR headsets were going to be way easier to build than we thought. So, but yeah, I think in the next 5 years, I think we'll definitely be able to get there. There's tons of breakthroughs in processing power now, and AI, in battery technology, all these things that are required to get there, and that'll eventually make its way into the final end user product. So.
Speaking of AI and new technologies, you have a background in AI, machine learning. How do you see the incorporation of Gen AI into AR headsets and even to WorkLink? How do you see that coming into fruition?
Yeah, it's a particular area of passion of mine. I was building neural networks before they were cool. I was literally hand coding neural networks back in like the 2000s. I was applying it to bioinformatics problems, so protein folding and DNA analysis.
I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, with the recent advancements in AI, I'm super excited about it. At the end of the day, what our product is a content creation platform, and the idea is that you can take 3D models and out of that build work instructions to deliver knowledge to a frontline technician. So, I mean, Gen AI is also content creation. So I think there's a very nice overlap in terms of what you can possibly do with Gen AI technologies to speed that up. And along with good hardware, the big barrier to adoption for AR technologies is the cost to create content. It's time consuming. It takes a lot of manpower, and so the whole point of WorkLink is to make that as easy as possible. So with AI technologies, I think we can make that even easier by like an order of magnitude. Then you combine it with the ability to, sift through vast amounts of information quickly, to, give information to a frontline worker. And there's a pretty nice 1-2 punch there. And myself and the product team has been doing a lot of work on these AI technologies, doing a lot of prototyping, and pretty excited to see some of the stuff that we're working on come out in the next, coming months and years. So.
Yeah, you just got me thinking about content, especially considering WorkLink. That's the most challenging in terms of you've got these blueprints or schematics of different for manufacturing a jet engine, for example. Well, you can't create all the different use cases to repair that engine or to modify it or to build it. But with Gen AI, you're able to create those models now from every different angle. With Gen AI, you could create content for different specific use case you never thought about, nor did the manufacturer. Is that what you're trying to get at?
Stuff like that, yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of ideas out there that are kind of floating around, some of which are more practical than others. But yeah, I mean the combination of computer vision technologies, lidar, advanced image processing, large language models like ChatGPT. They're like just my personal specialty, and part of the reason for Scope's success, I think, is just the ability to take together a lot of really crazy, complex new cutting edge technologies and slam them together to solve a customer problem. And I got a lot of stuff to work with recently. Like you said, converting 2-dimensional images into 3D models. The stuff that large language models can do to sift through information and take many different documents and synthesize something. You name it. There is a lot of possibilities to this. So, like I said, the team's prototyped a lot of really things that I think have major value to the customer. And I'm just really excited about what the future brings. There's a lot of potential.
That's great. I have one last question. As a seasoned developer and entrepreneur, what advice do you offer for individuals who's looking to venture into the AR industry, especially who's completely new to this field?
I think it's more approachable than ever to be started as a developer in anything, but also, into AR. I think any new developer can, just go to ChatGPT and be like, here, how do I write code? And it's possible that in the next 5 years or 2 years that you don't even need to know how to code, that, just by telling, ChatGPT what you want to write, it'll just go generate that code for you. I used to be, really worried about our developers and hiring the right people that had, the really in-depth knowledge about a certain language. I don't care anymore. It's totally possible for you to go write, C++ and then say, hey, ChatGPT, take my C++ function and convert it to JavaScript or something, right? That's completely convertible now. And even then, I've been coaching our developers to use ChatGPT as much as possible to actually write code or GitHub Copilot or any of the Gen AI products to write code for you. So yeah, as a new developer that doesn't know really what to do, go get started with Unity. Unity is the easiest way to go create an AR experience if you want to customize something. That's actually how we started. Our very first product was built with Unity 2.0 back in 2012. So one of the very first, a very buggy early first version of Unity. And it turned out to be a really great choice to get product market fit. We've since moved off of that. For the authoring part, our app is still based on Unity. And it's the platform for creating an AR experience, and it's pretty approachable to go and build something with. The other alternative is just Xcode. Like Swift is a very nice language for beginners, and it's very powerful. It's free. You can go down, download Xcode, and go hack around something, and get ChatGPT to go generate some code for you in Swift, and get it on your phone and get it in the Vision Pro simulator, and eventually, when you can get your hands on a Vision Pro, and try it out. So. Yeah, it's just get started. It's not that hard, and I think, like I said, it's as approachable as it's ever been right now, and really cool, tons of opportunity. I think with the Vision Pro, a couple of years ago, it was impossible to hire XR developers. I think back in the kind of the VR boom, it was really, really hard because there just weren't that many, and demand was sky high. Then everybody kind of pivoted to Web3 and NFTs and now AI. But with Vision Pro coming in, I'm pretty sure XR is going to come back in vogue. So as a career opportunity, that's probably a pretty good option as well.
That's great advice. I really respected your insight in the enterprise world and how they're adopting AR. Any last parting words that you want to give to our guests?
No, it's a great journey. Thanks for having me on the podcast. And if anybody's listening wants to reach out, feel free. I'm always happy to chat and give my my knowledge acquired through years of learning and pain.
Yeah, you should check out Scope AR, because on your site you also offer a free ebook for anyone interested adopting AR technologies. It's a great ebook that kind of gives you soup to nuts information on how to incorporate AR into your work processes. So you should definitely check that out. Any other places that they should find you?
LinkedIn's always good. Pretty soon on the website we'll be offering an ROI calculator. One of the things we're doing with our customers right now is just going through, and checking out, okay, how much do you spend with us? How much are you spending normally on these use cases? And how much are you saving? And the number is always tremendous. We're seeing, routinely 8x ROI. And so we want to give that calculator away for free to, allow people to, just see how much you can save and start adopting this technology, because it is revolutionary. And we're just excited to help people, improve their productivity and increase the bottom line. So